Testing, testing. All right, we should be live. Very boring day. Pretty much nothing happened. Everyone's waiting on the reconciliation bill to come through and raise the debt ceiling, if you will. If that does get passed, we should see a nice little bounce back to like 441 where SPY began to sell off. But until that passes, we're not going to really see too much on SPY moving forward, to be honest. The sell pressure is going to continue to be very strong. If you guys didn't see the dollar today, the dollar is absolutely chatting, just pumping straight up. We mentioned it a few times on stream. USD, JPY, also looking at Dixie. Both of them are doing very well. USD. My dollar position that started out as a hedge, now it's becoming like a full-size position. We've had it for, I think, over 6 months. We've been slowly building it basically the entire year. It's actually profitable now. We were down like 50%, then we just kept adding more contracts as it went down. That's basically the whole point of the position. The dollar cost into the dollar cost average into the dollar. And now that the dollar is pumping, it's being priced in very quickly. As we can see here, dollar straight up today. Look at USD JPY straight up. Look at the daily on USD JPY. The past 1, 2, 3, 6 days, literally vertical. There's not a single pullback on like any of these candles. Just straight up breaking a 2-year high, I believe. Yeah, breaking the high of 2020 and the high of 2021. So dollar is definitely looking pretty damn good right now. You can see Euro USD also breaking a low of 2021 and approaching kind of the initial level that led to the massive spike in 2020. So once we begin to lose like 115, it can quickly begin to fall here. So the dollar looks pretty damn strong, not just by itself, but against the other world currencies. Right now, SPY and Qs, if they can continue this little buy up here, they don't look too bad, to be honest. The daily on SPY is holding the monthly VWAP, and then so is Qs. Qs is sitting on the second month VWAP as well. So as long as SPY holds on to like 433, Qs holds on to 361, it actually doesn't look too bad. This could be a bottom, right? But for the bottom to be confirmed, you really would need to see that the debt ceiling get raised. We would hope by tomorrow that would be we would have a decision on that. Tomorrow is going to be choppy either way, to be honest, because I showed you guys on the calendar there are multiple Fed talks tomorrow. I think there's 4 different Fed talks tomorrow, and then we also have a bunch of economic reports coming out as well. If we look at the calendar here, we have GDP quarter over quarter, unemployment, GDP price index, Chicago PMI. First Fed talk is at 10 o'clock. Natural gas is at 10:30. Another Fed talk at 11. Another Fed talk at 12:30. And I believe that's it. So 3 Fed talks, GDP, and unemployment. Not looking too good. Tomorrow should be pretty choppy. What's going on, Alan? Young, good to see you. You said I studied your volume profile videos, added some info from them to my trading arsenal, pure gold. Appreciate that, man. I'm glad it helped you out. I do have a new series on that if you haven't seen it. I posted a 5-part series on trading volume profile. So make sure if you haven't seen that to check it out. It should help you out. Bitcoin actually did really well this morning, so did Ethereum, and then you lost all of your gains on the day selling off from the 200 EMA on the 30-minute. Like I said, nice morning session, or I guess you would say pre-market session. And then during the American hours, it sold off pretty hard, giving up pretty much the entire gain on the day. Same with Ethereum. You are up about 1%. Could turn into a bulldog here. We could see a nice little double bottom if it wants to bottom here. Probably struggle again at the 200 EMA and then begin to push higher. Obviously, that's a lot of predicting, so we want to see the bottom come in first before we can say it's a bulldog. But for now, if it can hold the lows, this doesn't look too bad. This could be a bottoming pattern here. Sadly, on the longer time frames for Bitcoin, it's not looking too good. You are losing the 200 EMA, you are losing the anchored VWAP from the all-time high, and you are losing the anchored VWAP from the local low. So the inability to break into the monthly VWAP, which is around like 45,500, that's pretty bearish. Okay, so the last time we bounced into that VWAP, we should have been able to break that pretty easily, but just didn't have the buyers, right? So the longer that it stays below the 200 EMA, the more bearish you are. And I would anticipate a 39,000 retest pretty soon. You could even get a 38.4, 38.5. There is a support down there. I still have my bids down there, so hopefully if we do pull back, it will find some buyers there. One thing that is a little worrying for my bids is I was hoping to get filled on this move here. The first sweep of the 200 EMA, that was my trade plan. But I only got filled on a couple of my bids. So now if we come down to fill my bids, this plan is not the same. My plan was the sweep of the 200. This is not a sweep of the 200. This is a lower low. Okay, so if my bids get filled here, I'm going to leave them. We're going to see how it plays out. I think there is still strong support here. So I am going to leave my bids. But I would say the probability of this trade being a success is definitely down a lot than if my bids would have just got filled on the first move. So it putting in a lower low here is a little worrying. But hopefully it's a lower low that gets bought up immediately. Yeah, that happens a lot, man. If you start learning the volume profile levels, you'll start realizing why price is reacting to certain levels that look like they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. This could be a very ugly bulldog on 5-minute ES that we're seeing. Double bottom, curved back, not so much. But then you have the pop-up and the pullback. So if the pullback isn't too deep, this should be breaking higher. This is the bulldog that I called out this morning on the 30-minute. Most of the time when I say like finding buyers or finding sellers, I'm referring to like how much value we're finding on those levels. Like if we begin to break the 200 EMA, if it was finding buyers here, it would have a lot of value. If we start building value above the 200 EMA, then the buyers are there and we can continue higher. But if we just pop up above the 200 EMA and then sell off and we don't really increase the value, then you're not really finding buyers there. It's just becoming a little trap. Hey, TK, what's going on? Sarish, what's going on? Very boring day, man. Unless you played like Netflix or Dollar Tree today, there really wasn't much. Netflix, Dollar Tree, and then what else? Lucid. Those are like the only 3 plays today. Squeeze indicator. I think you're referring to the one that I mentioned last stream. It's fairly new. It's like one of the newest indicators that we made. But it's off of an old concept. We used to teach that concept back in 2017, 2018. So the indicator is a little new, but the concept and the formula is fairly old. I think we're actually breaking out of that wedge that we were in, that low volatility. Let's see. What did I show it on? Was it like a 30-minute? Yeah, it was. Remember I told you guys that on the 30-minute we were like squeezing really tight, and we were most likely going to see a really big move soon. Well, there you go. You got your big move. You sold off very quickly. What is the bot saying on SPY? We're still in a big sell. The sell is very profitable. You're trying to put in some support levels, but they're not holding, or they're holding, but they're not bouncing too much just yet. Same thing with Qs. We're still in a sell. What about Bitcoin? I think Bitcoin is still in a sell as well. Yeah, Bitcoin's in a sell. You can't see it. It's right behind the take profit. Still in a sell from up there. I think the weekly's still in a buy, so we're still holding trend on the weekly. I believe the 3-day is in a sell. Yeah, 3 days in a sell as well. 3-day lost the trend. The Bitcoin is a little scary here, to be honest. The weekly's holding in a bullish trend, but the daily and the 3-day are not. A little worrying there. Yeah, Young, always look for the value on the volume profile. That will show you where the buyers and sellers are coming in. What's going on, Jasmine? Welcome to the channel. Take a look at corn. What's corn? The futures. I always forget the ticker. There it is, ZC. Still in a nasty little accumulation here. Weekly is trying to bottom, but it doesn't have too much buy pressure here. Really hard to draw a trend line on that. Let's see if we can do a volume profile. Oops. Okay, that's better. Let's grab an anchored VWAP from the high. And then let's grab one more from the local low. All right. So we're pretty balanced down here, slightly bearish because you have the long tail on the top. So this is a bearish accumulation with the lowercase b shape, obviously. If we can start holding above 553, this would look pretty good to push into that anchored VWAP around 604. But the longer that we hold below the 200 and hold below that value area high, the higher chance we have of just going lower and finding value below the value area that we're currently in. So I would definitely lean bearish until we at least find some value above 552. If we do find value above 552, you would be looking for the 604 anchored VWAP, which kind of lines up with the gap that we have right there. But definitely a bearish accumulation. Yeah, finding balance on ES and SPY today. It's just going to wait for the bills to get passed or not passed, right? It's just going to follow the news on the bills before it finds any real value. That's the problem that we're sitting in on the index is we're being very news driven right now. Bitcoin wants 39 again. I hope so, honestly. I have bids at 39 that I would like to get filled. Yeah, CEI is the biggest mover today, volume-wise. They have 832 million shares traded today. They only have 104 million share float, so they have an 8x multiple of their share float. It's a dog shit pump and dump. It's being pump and dumped by big pump and dump groups. It's just a typical penny stock being pump and dumped. It's an oil and gas company, so it's easy to pump and dump the energy sector right now because of all the energy shortages going on around like Europe and whatnot. The second biggest volume gainer today was PALT. Another one that pumped really hard. Went from $5 to $15 in one day. This is a software publisher. Volume traded today was 128 million. They have a share float of 3.7 million, so they have a massive multiple. What is that, a 30x multiple? And the third biggest volume today was Lucid, which you guys all are familiar with. It's the EV company. Had a big spike into the daily pivot, but then you failed the pivot. No, I haven't seen that ticker before. Another one that was pumping today that actually, whoa, just started nuking. Big volume. XLRN. Acceleron Pharma. Look at this candle you just got on that. Big volume coming in on that to the downside. Not sure what this is, but I've been seeing calls come in on Cheddar Flow, and I've been seeing a lot of volume on my scanners, but it's too extended. It's just completely away from its original value, right? Original value around 140 to 130, trading at 180. So very hard to trade it up here. The monthly is beautiful. 35% on the month, closing in one day. Not sure why my settings get messed up all the time, but if you guys wanted my settings, here's a good time to stop the video if you're watching the VOD. These are all my settings. Okay, sorry, I was doing all this because I wanted to show you something. So if we look at the visible range, the volume profile visible range, we can see the volume profile of the past 5 days, right? We're looking at the 3 days at the top and then 2 days down here. So what do the last 5 days really show us? They showed us that there was massive value being found around 443.40, which is the POC. So we were kind of finding balance there for like 3 days. And then we nuked down, didn't really get a lot of action, anywhere from 442 down to 437. There's kind of 5 points of inefficiency here. And then below 437 down to 433, we have a lot of action again. So we kind of have like a an uppercase B, right? Where we have value and then a gap and then value, right? But it's pretty, the gap is pretty big. So it would be kind of like this, where we have a big gap in the middle. But it's still traded the same way, like I taught you guys in the 5-part series. You could either take this as a continuation or you could take it as a reversal pattern, depending on what the signals were giving you. If you were taking it as a reversal pattern, you would be more reluctant to buy the lows around the second node. This is the first node, this is the second node. So you buy the lows around the second node, and then you look for a push back into the middle, right? The inefficiency. So like if you bought the area kind of somewhere around here, you would be looking for a move back into 437 to 442. If you're looking for a continuation play, you're looking more so to sell the highs of the second node or sell a rejection of the inefficiency, so anywhere from like 440 to 439, or selling the highs around this area here, around 437. And then you're looking for a continuation move below the secondary node. Okay, so like I said, it all depends on what your other indicators are telling you, what signals you're getting, kind of to determine which way you're going to play this. What I would say is both plays are valid. I would be careful selling the highs right around here, because if that bill does start to get passed, you would easily push into the inefficiency. You're more, it's a better trade to sell somewhere in this gap area here, and then look for a continuation to the downside. If you wanted to sell. If you're a buyer, this is already sitting on the monthly VWAP like we showed earlier. So if you look at the daily, we have the monthly VWAP right here, right? Right around 433 to 444. So if we go back, 433 to 444, let me reline this up, would be somewhere around here to here. Okay, so if we started to find support there, which we did earlier today, that is actually a decent buying opportunity, because you have very low risk to reward. Your stop loss is kind of below the monthly VWAP, and then you're looking for a move all the way back into 439, I'd say at the lowest, all the way up to like 442 at the highest. So like if you took a trade something like that, it would be anywhere from 2.0 anywhere to a 3.5, right? So pretty good risk reward. It's kind of how you could look at the last like 5 days and build a trade plan from those 5 days, right? You don't have to just look at today's action and like yesterday's action, right? And you can go out further too, but you don't want to go out too far because then it kind of defeats the purpose. But if we go all the way out to like the move that started the bottom here, you get kind of the same idea on the profile. You have a massive node here, massive node here, big gap in between. Most of the gap is right there where we talked about earlier, 441. And then we don't really have a whole lot of support below that. So if you were looking to take a trade, your stop loss would be very tight because you don't really have a lot of support below that node. Like you could put your stop loss kind of below the node here, but it'd be kind of pointless. What's today? Wednesday. So if we wanted to look at like just this week's profile, we would take the last 3 days, which would still give you the same exact trade plan. Node, gap, right? This is a complete gap, a 100% gap from here to here. Another thing that you could use to trade this, I was going to say the 80% rule, but you're already kind of playing out the 80% rule. But you could look at these value areas from the previous support. So we had the value area low there, value area low there. There's going to be major buy pressure moving forward, right? So we had a decent amount of buy pressure coming in around that first one. We have not tested the lower one around 432. So if we were to finally sell off that 434 value area, we would be going straight down to that 432. And you can see pretty much the same exact thing on ES as well. Thoughts on Netflix? Netflix is already hitting my targets. If you guys follow my analysis in Discord, I told you guys Netflix above 600, you get 610. Above 610, you get 615. So 610 was hit almost to the penny, and then we started to pull back. So until it starts finding value above 610, it's slightly bearish. Hey, Brett, you'll get the hang of it, man. It's just screen time. You just need lots of screen time. The thing with volume profile trading is it does all the hard work for you. Like it finds all the hard levels for you. I really wish TradingView would update their volume profile to label the levels. So we could label the value area levels and maybe extend them. But they don't have that just yet. Maybe with V5 we could build something ourselves, but I've tried to stay away from building the volume profile stuff because they keep banning people who do that. So I try not to do that. But yeah, it does all the hard work for you. Like finding all the key levels is very easy. It's just using the levels. That's why, like I talked about in my 5-part series, the different game plans you want to have, right? Like if you have a D-shaped profile or a P-shaped profile or a lowercase b or an uppercase B, like you want to have a different game plan for all these days. Like if you were trading today on ES, today is just completely balanced. We have a perfect balanced profile, nearly perfect. So throughout the day, like if I hide this here, if we show the value area, throughout the day, you would have been selling the value area high and buying the value area low because you're balanced. So you would have had to let it develop for a little bit, and then once it developed, you had your levels, and you would have been looking to buy the lows, sell the highs, because it's balanced. So on a balanced day, it's a mean reversion day. You want to keep reverting back to the mean, the POC. I didn't do any scalping today. I didn't like the price action too much. We were given a 30-minute pivot, which is part of my strategy. I did ignore it because if you guys were in Discord, like I said, the last few blue pivots have not been playing out because the buy pressure is extremely weak. Not only that, was another thing was the blue pivot came in and it already gave you your move. So I ignore pivots like this typically. The pivot came in, but it already gave you almost a 20-point move without pulling back to retest the pivot. So those pivots are hard to scalp. Do I use OBs or BBs much? OBs, I think you mean order blocks. BB, I'm guessing you mean Bollinger Band. I used to use Bollinger Bands a lot, but then I developed a bunch of different indicators that kind of tell me what Bollinger Bands are telling me by themselves. So I don't really need Bollinger Bands anymore because my other indicators kind of give me the information that I was looking for from a Bollinger Band. Order blocks, no, not really. I used to use them a little bit in my crypto trading, but then once again, I developed indicators that kind of gave me levels that I believed were better than order blocks. Like my pivots, they happen in areas that are very similar to order blocks. Not always, but similar technique. So I don't use order blocks specifically anymore. Yeah, Young, that just comes with experience, man. Like trusting in your analysis is just it's an experience thing. Once you've done the same thing 100 times, you'll trust it. It's like I said, it's intuition. Like most of trading is intuition if you're discretionary trading. It's obviously a lot cleaner when I'm going over it in hindsight on stream than it is if you're doing it live. So there is that aspect of it as well. So take everything that I'm going over with a grain of salt because I'm going over it in hindsight. Well, not everything, but a lot of the levels that we go over on stream have already happened, right? So when you're seeing them develop live, you're going to have a different outlook. But that's the beautiful thing about volume profile is the majority of volume profile is not hindsight, right? The only hindsight that you could be doing with volume profile is calling out the same day. Like if we were calling out levels on this day and we were like, oh yeah, just short the high here, buy the low, super easy. Like that's hindsight, right? But if we're ignoring today, let's just completely ignore today, and then we grab like levels from yesterday, then it doesn't become hindsight, right? Because we could have said, okay, we could short when we're losing the value area high of yesterday, like when we're retracing. I talk about this a lot. And then you could have longed when you're retesting the POC of yesterday. So it becomes hindsight when you're talking about the same day, but not when you're using levels that are already set in stone. These levels cannot change. These levels are already set in stone. They will not change ever. So like I went over on our series, when you have a D-shaped volume profile, it's a mean reversion day. So what you're looking to do is sell the highs, buy the lows. But that sounds very easy, but when do you sell the highs? When do you buy the lows? I also go over that in the videos, right? So go back and watch those videos if you're unsure. When you have those retrace moments where you like pop above the value area high and you try to find value, but then you can't do it and you retrace the value area high, that's when you want to be selling the highs, right? Sell the high and then go back and take profit on POC, take profit on the low. Same thing on the low. You break the value area low, you can't really find value, retrace, that gives you the trade. The first part is finding what day you're in. So like finding your profile, because that determines what system you're going to use. When your day looks like a perfect D, you're buying the low, selling the high. See, this is getting pretty bearish here because you failed the value area high, failed it again, failed it again. But then we're also putting in lower highs. And then we put in the POC, we shifted the POC towards the high, which is slightly bullish. But then we're failing the POC. So we shifted it towards the high, and now we're failing it. So all the different patterns that we're seeing right now line up to be bearish. I look at ES on the 30-minute chart because there's more candles. So if you look at ES on a 5-minute chart, there's too many candles. The price action is too long. I like summing it up on a 30 because it shows you the entire day in a much smaller window. But SPY, you can't use a 30-minute because there's not that many candles. So I like breaking it down to a 5-minute. Notice how there's relatively the same amount of bars. Like if I use the 5-minute on SPY, it's about 74 bars. And if I go to ES and use the 30-minute, it's going to be a little less. 43 bars. But they are, both of which are enough bars to trade. You know what I mean? Like if I looked at ES on a 5-minute, this is too many bars. This is 260 bars. Like that's too many. I don't need that much price action. So we could go to a 15-minute, which would be closer to SPY. It would give us about 86 bars. So it'd be very close to SPY. But I prefer the 30-minute. The 30-minute gives me a much cleaner price action, I think. Yeah, the bonds are it's not the bonds going up, the bonds are going down. It's the yields that are going up. The bonds are getting wrecked. The 10-year bond is straight down. It's the yields that are going up. The 10-year yield is straight up. And then so is the 20-year. The bonds are actually going down. Bonds and yields are inverse, right? If the bonds go up, the yields go down. The bonds go down, the yields go up. If the yields go up, it hurts growth. They don't have a long-term correlation, but they have a short-term correlation. So if yields pump short-term, it makes growth go down, which is why we've been seeing growth getting wrecked here. Right, we see the yields pumping, we see growth nuking. Nasty sell-off here on SPY. How's the dollar doing? Dollar still slowly rising. USD JPY flattening out a little bit. You said is the blue candle on the opening today? Was there a pivot right on the open? Let me see. Oh yeah, yeah. So that was the pivot I was talking about earlier. I didn't take this pivot because the last few pivots have been failing because the sellers are in control. And then it was also too strong of a candle. You never came back down to retest the pivot. Or you did, but too far away. I want to see the retest like immediately within 1 or 2 candles. If it would have came back to retest it within these first 2 candles, I would have taken that trade. But it didn't retest it until later. I think you had like a 15-minute pivot. Yeah, so the 15-minute pivot was actually better. If you took this 15-minute pivot on the open, this was actually a better pivot. Because you came back for the retest and then you bounced right off of it. No, I didn't see any call flow on SPY today. I see a lot of SPX. No SPY. If you notice during a balanced day, the Momo will typically follow price action very closely, like the trend line. The trend line is the longer term trend, the longer term price action. But during a balanced day, it typically follows spot on. So like when the trend line is going down, price going down, kind of flattens out, price flattens out, trend line goes up, price goes up, trend line starts to come down, price comes down. So typically the trend line will not follow price that closely. It typically lags a little bit. But during balanced days, the trend line is usually very close to price. So if you guys use the Momo in your trading, make sure to pay attention to that when you're trading volume profile. No, so my pivots on the indicator in the video that I said how to trade pivots, they're completely different. I've actually changed the name of that technique to buy and sell pressure because I didn't want them to conflict. So that technique is what I call buy and sell pressure when I talk about like, oh, there's sell pressure here, there's buy pressure here. I'm talking about that pivot technique on that video. The indicator finds pivots completely differently. In that formula, I do not talk about. But it's basically exactly what the name suggests. It's when price and volume are pivoting into whatever direction that pivot is coming in. By the way, guys, we're about to hit 8,000 subs. I don't think we've hit it yet. We need one more sub. If you're not subbed to the channel, hit that sub button and we'll hit 8,000 subs on YouTube. Once we hit 8,000 subs, I'm going to make an announcement on Twitter. We're going to do some giveaways for the indicators. Make sure to keep an eye on my Twitter. Should be within the next day or two. Oh no, Acid. I don't ask for subscriptions on Twitch. I would never ask people to spend money on my channel. So if you want to subscribe on Twitch, that's completely up to you. But YouTube is usually what I refer to when I'm asking for subs. Hey, there we go. We just hit 8,000. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. Been a long time running on YouTube. In like the last, let me look it up on YouTube actually. I think it's like just in the last year, we've gained most of those subs. Let me see. Yeah, we've gained about 5,000 subs in the last year. I appreciate you guys. We are going to do a small giveaway as a, I lost the word for it, as a celebration, I guess you'd say, on Twitter. So later today, I'll post details on that. Can I go over Nifty 50? Yeah, let's take a look. I don't have volume data on Nifty, sadly. So we can only do it with price candles. Actually, hold on. There should be another one on here. Does this one have volume data? Okay, there we go. Are they the same price? Yeah, they are. Okay. Looks like it's just been balancing out, honestly. Even the past few weeks, it's almost a perfect balance profile. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. These are overlapping, so we're only going to grab yesterday's. Yeah, it looks like almost a perfect balance is happening on Nifty. So looking at balance, basically what we talked about earlier, you're buying the lows, you're selling the highs. But in this case, you're balancing out for multiple days, right? So you have to be a little careful. But with that said, if we take today's, which it's already closed, if we take today's value area high, we're kind of failing it right now. We tried to bounce above it and then we failed it right around the resistance. But if we can start to hold above this value area high of today, which obviously would have to be tomorrow, if we hold above this tomorrow, you would be looking for these resistance levels right here around 17.8 and 17.83. And then break those, you could get an 80% rule up to 17.895. If you can't quickly get back above this level tomorrow, above 17.7, very likely going to go all the way back down to 17.6, 17.62 to be exact. And then if we break that, that's where you're looking for a gap fill, which I don't know if it's already filled. Let's see. Has that been filled? No. So we almost filled it here. So if we do lose that 17.6 level, you're going to go down to 17.56, which is that gap fill. For now, it looks like we're holding on to like this little trend that we're in. Yeah, nice little trend right here. So if we can hold on to this trend tomorrow, we should be able to push all the way back up into the highs here. But you can clearly see it does not like this area. Massive sell-off here, massive sell-off here. So there's a lot of resistance around this node. Let me zoom in. You see this node right here? There's a lot of resistance around that node. So until we can consistently stay above this node, that's going to hold us down. But if we stay above this, this is going to be a launch pad right into that high around 17.9. Yeah, looks like ES is selling off pretty hard here. It's almost the exact same thing that's happening to SPY, is it really does not like this level. So we're getting really strong sell-offs around the 437 area. Until SPY can hold above 437, it's looking really bad. You're about to close on low a day. What time is it? 5 minutes left. This is not good at all. Is the dollar pumping?
Why is SPY dumping?
The dollar's just pumping hard and the government's shutting down. That bull div that we mentioned on Dixie, that was the bottom.
Did they say how long the government shutdown was?
It's not shut down yet, but if they don't pass the bill like this week, they're going to start shutting down pretty much.
Are we bearish yet?
I'm not taking bearish SPY or Qs, but I've been loading up on my dollar play, and my dollar play's finally green after 6 months. Yeah, Dixie looks really strong. Why is the USD index going up so much? Or going up? It's mainly because what's going on in the Fed. There's a lot of stuff that I can't really cover. I don't really understand it too much. But
silver is down 5%.
Yeah, commodities are nuking. You have the dollar running, Bitcoin, Ethereum going down because of the dollar. The other world currencies are doing pretty bad too. The Japanese yen and the euro are both doing bad. And when
is oil doing well?
No, it's kind of red today. It should be doing all right though. When the other world currencies, mainly the yen and the euro, do bad against the dollar pumps. So
Canadian dollar is getting fucking rugged.
Everything's going down except for the US dollar. That's why they want to keep printing money, because they know the other world currencies are nuking anyway.
Bitcoin fixes this.
Did you see Barry's last tweet?
No, what was it?
It was about how like the 1929 Great Depression started in September and it didn't fully recover until the end of October. Dude's been like calling for a fucking depression all week.
I have a hot take on Burry that I haven't really said, but
let's hear
it. I feel like, and I've seen this over the past like year plus, all of his hot takes. I feel like everyone praises him because he was like the messiah of like 08, 09, and like he was spot on. He predicted the GFC before anybody else did, and he made a fucking killing off of it. But all of his takes since then have been pretty dog shit. So I feel like people hold him to like this massive standard. They think he's like the great messiah of the market.
The only one that can see a bear market.
Yeah, like they think everything that comes out of his mouth is pure gold and he's right about everything. Almost every take that he's had since the GFC has been pretty dog shit. I think the guy's a fucking genius. He's obviously way smarter than I am. The guy's worth billions of dollars. But I think people take it too far. They think like every fucking thing the guy says is spot on. He's been like dead wrong about Bitcoin like since the beginning. And I'm pretty sure he's had a bunch of hot takes about like gold and silver that were pretty dog shit too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had a couple of hot takes over the years about inflation and deflation that have been pretty dog shit. Because he's an extreme guy. It's never like, oh, inflation will go up a little bit. Or like, oh, Bitcoin might go down a little bit. He's extreme. Like if he says something's gonna happen, it's like the world's gonna fucking collapse like it did in 08.
I feel like his analysis, like, technically is right. Like, there's probably a lot of shit that should be happening that he says, but it just doesn't for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. So like the GFC was one of those big things in the market where the market should have collapsed, and it did. And that's why he was right. It took a long fucking time for it to happen, but it happened. And like the market that we're in now is a fucking clown market. The market's not doing anything that it should be doing. So when he makes all these takes about like what should be happening, he's probably right. The market doesn't give a fuck. People forget he isn't Christian Bale. Yeah, right. Yeah, I do hire time frame analysis on ES all the time. I think right now it's not as helpful because we have so much fundamental stuff going on. The thing with indexes is you have to understand when fundamentals are taking over. And like right now is a time when fundamentals are taking over. Like when we have the government shutdown talks like every single day. We have all these different Fed meetings going on. Like technicals, they matter to a certain degree, but when we have all these different fundamental reports happening back to back to back, the fundamentals are taking over. They printed 40% this year and it's still going up. From my understanding, the dollar is only going up because the other world economies are not doing very good. The dollar is mainly going up against the other currencies.
Anyone see why BNB is up 10%?
No, is it pumping?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rusty, it sucks, man. Could have made a lot of money in 08. What's my main source of economic news? It's going to sound very sad, but it's Twitter. I follow a shit ton of economic accounts and people who have access to Bloomberg terminals and all these other different news terminals, and they just share the information for free. The best accounts to follow are First Squawk and Walter Bloomberg. But I have a bunch of other guys too that I can't remember off the top of my head.
FX hedge.
Yeah, FX. No, I didn't. I stopped following him. That guy's an idiot. He started spinning like all of his headlines, so I stopped following him. Disclose TV, I follow them too. They're more into politics than they are economics. But then I follow like all the obvious ones like Bloomberg and stuff. I like going straight to the source though. I like following the actual analyst. So I follow a lot of like analysts and I follow a lot of like journalists too. So that's why I can't remember their names. They're all different. If you just follow First Squawk and Delta 1, his name is Walter Bloomberg on Twitter, you'll get the majority of the stuff you need to know about. And then I also use this website here, the forex factory. I'll link it in the channel. This is where you get all of the economic news. All right, guys, I got to get going. I appreciate you guys being here. Once again, thank you for 8,000 subs on YouTube. I'm going to be posting a little giveaway on Twitter to celebrate the 8,000 subs. We're going to be giving away access to the indicators and stuff, little trials and whatnot. So make sure to follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting that later today. So yeah, check that out. But if you guys are in Discord, I'll post the analysis within the next hour or two. So make sure to check out the analysis channel. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow on stream at 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys. Peace out. Have a good one.